Good morning, students. Welcome to a new week of social studies. We are now moving on to a new unit, which is entitled A Nation Divided, The Road to Civil War. And what this title refers to is the fact that between 1861 and 1865, the United States engaged in one of the most bloody wars that the modern world had known until then. It would cost some 700,000 lives and split the country in two halves, a northern half and a southern half, and really quite almost destroy the United States of America. And so what we're going to be looking at is, why? Why did the United States almost break apart, or actually it did break apart for 4 or 5 years? What was the road to civil war? What were the origins? What led to this enormous conflict? And the overall key question we're going to be asking is, was the Civil War inevitable? Did it have to happen? What were the factors that led to this war? So this first week, we're going to look at a key factor in leading to the Civil War, which would be the role of cotton, the role of this what you might think is an innocent, the element that goes into our textiles, cotton. How did cotton end up leading to the Civil War? This is something we're going to start to look at this week, and we're going to continue to explore. The focus questions specifically this week are going to be, how did a new technology, Eli Whitney's cotton gin, lead to the expansion of the cotton economy in the South? That's our first question. And then the second focus question will be, how did this new economy, new cotton economy, King Cotton as it's known, how did it then lead to the spectacular expansion of slavery in the South, right? So how did a new technology that involved processing raw cotton lead to the expansion of the cotton economy in the South? And then how did this expansion of the new cotton economy lead to the spectacular spread and further expansion of slavery in the South? So let's continue on to our first page here. Let me find our first page that we're going to comment on, in which we have these two questions. And let me say a few things first. This lecture is meant to be like an addition to the lectures that you're going to be watching and the documents you're going to be looking at, as a way of trying to clarify what our theme is. Now, the first thing I want to say here is that as of around 1800, and certainly right after the American Revolution, it was widely expected across the United States by most people that slavery would disappear, okay? The transatlantic slave trade is actually prohibited beginning in 1808. And that prohibition, that elimination of the actual slave trade across the Atlantic Ocean, was part of this mentality, this notion that slavery would disappear. Except what actually happened would be the opposite. Contrary to expectations, the number of slaves and the importance of the slave economy grew enormously, and I mean enormously, after 1800, all the way up to 1860, the year before the Civil War begins. So the question is, why? Why did slavery become even more important after 1800 than it had been before 1800, contrary to people's expectation? Well, it all has to do with cotton. So if you look at on the left of your screen, you'll see this white fluffy, the fruit of the cotton plant, which is the raw material out of which textiles are made. That plant is responsible for the expansion of slavery. But it's not just that plant, it is also an invention, okay? A new technology, as you'll see in your first video tomorrow, that permits that fabric of cotton, that raw cotton, to be easily cleaned and processed and turned into textiles. It'll be a new technology invented in the 1790s that does that trick. Before then, the kind of cotton that grew in the continental United States had a lot of seeds in it and it was very difficult to clean, and it made it very expensive to pull the seeds out of those fluffy cotton fruits, so-called fruits, right? And it required, you know, a lot of slaves actually to de-seed, to clean these cotton, this cotton, which made it a little too expensive, really, to exploit the kind of cotton that grew in the continental United States. And therefore, because of the expense, there was that put a kind of a brake on the slave economy. Well, that would all change with Eli Whitney's cotton gin, and you're going to watch a video tomorrow which explains exactly why. You know, what is it about this new technology, more precisely than what I've just said, that allows this cotton to be easily de-seeded and cleaned. Okay? And that will help us understand then, you know, why you have this expansion of the cotton economy. Suddenly now, all this cotton that grows in the South can be cheaply de-seeded, and that in turn will lead to an expansion of the cotton economy. And then number two, which is our second question down here, because now suddenly there are, you know, many, many more plantations of cotton spreading throughout the South, there will therefore be, after 1800, a dramatically increased need for slaves, right? So we see here that sometimes a technology actually, such as this one, the de-seeding Eli Whitney's cotton gin, as it was called, gin for engine, by the way. Sometimes the technology, yes, it leads to progress in some ways, but in other ways, technology can be, you know, from a human point of view, very destructive. In this case, it became destructive because ultimately it would produce an expansion of slavery in the South, and an expansion of slavery which would ultimately lead to the Civil War of 1861, 1865. All right, a few words of introduction. Let me just move on here. So tomorrow you're going to look at this great short video of 3 minutes, 4 minutes actually. He's a master. I wish I could do that. A master being able to describe a complex process very briefly. You're going to answer some questions about this video, namely, you know, why did this new technology, the cotton gin, you know, why did it lead, more specifically, you know, to an expansion of the cotton economy? And you're going to look at Professor Manning's definition of king cotton, this expression which is used to describe this new economy. And then on Wednesday, you're going to go a little deeper into this question to answer the second question: how is the expansion of the cotton economy related to this dramatic expansion of slavery in the South between 1860 and 1861? Here you'll watch a longer video that goes a little bit more into detail, and again answer the question, that second question of the week. And then finally Thursday, I'm going to ask you to look at not videos, but a map, a fact sheet, and a short text, and kind of wrap it up in an exit ticket in which you answer my final question. So let me look at that. Let me go to that exit ticket here. Whoops, what happened here? Let me go here to, by the way, this is how you change the size of your browser. I mean, the size of the Google form. You go to those three dots and you can zoom in and out to make an image bigger or smaller, or text. And so you see here, this is Google form for Thursday. You're gonna look at a map, and part of this exercise here is for you to get some practice, you know, reading different kinds of sources, examining different kinds of sources. The exit ticket ultimately will ask you, you know, why did the cotton economy, and here we're talking about cotton economy, we're talking about the slave plantations in the South, but then also factories that turn raw cotton into clothes, into textiles, textile manufacturing in the North. Why did this new cotton economy lead to the enormous and unexpected, I emphasize, unexpected expansion of slavery in the South, in the US between 1860 and 1800 and 1860? So I want you to write a couple of sentences that are grammatical and that kind of wrap it all up, so that you walk away this week with a clear understanding of the answer to that question. So the first document is a map here. So look, when you look at this map, this shows a map that illustrates the expansion of slavery and the cotton economy in the South. Whenever you look at a map like this, look at first at the legend. This is called the legend. The legend has the keys to the map. You know, map will have symbols, colors, and in this case, the dots represent slave population. One dot represents 2,000 slaves, and then the yellow represents cotton growing areas. And then finally, the little icon here for factory represents cotton textile manufacturing. So I want you to study this map and make a connection between the areas that are growing cotton in orange or rather yellow, and then the dots, which represent slave populations, and the factories. Notice that most of the factories that processed cotton into clothes were situated in the north, only a few in the south. And then, of course, all of the slave plantations, cotton slave plantations, were in the south. So there's an economic division between north and south, though at the same time, you have to keep in mind that the cotton that was being grown by slaves in the south was shipped not only overseas to England to be processed into cotton textiles in the factories of England, but also shipped to the north to be processed into cotton textiles. So the North and South had an intimate economic relationship with one another, right? The North depended on raw cotton for in order to make its cotton textiles, and the South, profited from that sale. The white people in the South who owned slaves profited from that sale of raw cotton to factories in the North and factories in England. So take a look at that map. Learn to read a map. And then here we have a King Cotton fact sheet. Just take in these numbers. These are very remarkable. By 1860, 75% of the world's cotton, the raw cotton, came from the South. That means that Americans of African descent who were enslaved grew 75% of the world's cotton. Okay? And 60% of American exports was constituted by cotton. Okay, 60%, that's more than half of the profits the United States made from exporting goods to other countries came from slave labor. Okay, so anyway, read the rest of this. And then finally, we have a text from the period, which uses the expression King Cotton. So I want you to read it carefully to get a sense from a primary document, what we mean by King Cotton. Okay, well, that's it. I'll see you probably on Wednesday. I'll confirm, and we'll continue to discuss these issues.